The headlights in my driveway at 3 in the morning weren't supposed to be there. I stood at my bedroom window, watching the beam cut through the darkness, and my hand went cold on the glass. My truck was exactly where I'd left it Thursday evening, backed against the garage door. But those headlights belonged to a different vehicle, one that had no business being there. Drop your city or state in the comments, and let me know where you're following along from. I need to back up 48 hours to explain why those headlights made my blood run cold. Thursday afternoon, I'd been driving home from the hardware store when I saw her on the shoulder of Route 42, about 3 miles outside of town. Young woman, maybe 30, standing next to a silver Honda with the hood up, phone pressed to her ear. I could see from 50 yards away that she was crying. I've been a mechanic for 40 years. Started when I was 23. Worked my way up to shop foreman. Retired 3 years ago when my joints started arguing with me about crawling under cars. Some things you just don't stop seeing, though. A car in distress is like a person in distress to me. Can't just drive past. I pulled onto the shoulder behind her and got out slow, hands visible, because I know how it looks when a 63-year-old man approaches a young woman alone on a highway. Need some help? I called out before I got close. She turned, mascara streaking down her face, phone still at her ear. I've been on hold with roadside assistance for 20 minutes. They said it could be another hour. I glanced at the sky. Those clouds coming in from the west meant rain, and soon. Mind if I take a look? She hesitated, then nodded. I don't have much money for. No charge, I said. Just can't drive past someone who needs help. Took me about 15 minutes to diagnose the problem. Serpentine belt had snapped. I keep spares in my truck, old habit from my working days. Another 20 minutes, and I had her back on the road. She was gathering her hair back into a ponytail, clearly relieved, when she looked at me with this odd intensity. What's your name? Robert, I said. Robert Mitchell. Robert. She repeated it like she was committing it to memory. Then she reached out and gripped my forearm, her fingers surprisingly strong. I need you to listen to me very carefully. This weekend, no matter what happens, no matter who asks, do not move your truck from where it is right now. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? Your truck. This weekend. Don't move it. Not even to the street. Not even 6 inches. Her eyes were boring into mine now, and the crying woman from 10 minutes ago was gone. This was someone else entirely. Someone certain and urgent. Promise me. I don't understand. You will. Sunday morning. You'll understand. But right now, I need you to promise me you won't move that truck until Monday at the earliest. The hair on the back of my neck was standing up. Something in her voice, in the way she was looking at me. Okay, I heard myself say. I promise. She released my arm, and just like that, she was the grateful motorist again. Thank you so much for your help. You're a lifesaver. She got in her car and drove away, and I stood there on the shoulder of Route 42, wondering what the hell had just happened. I drove home and parked my truck exactly where I always do, backed up against the garage door, driver's side facing the street, about 2 feet from the fence line. I hadn't planned to go anywhere over the weekend anyway. My daughter Sarah was supposed to come for dinner Saturday with her husband Derek and the kids, but that was it. Friday came and went. Normal day. I worked in my workshop, reorganizing my tools, trying not to think about that strange encounter, trying not to wonder how a woman I'd helped for 20 minutes could know something about my weekend plans that I didn't know myself. Saturday morning, Derek called. Hey, Robert. His voice had that forced casual tone that I'd learned to recognize over the 6 years he'd been married to my daughter. Listen, Sarah's not feeling great, so we're going to have to postpone dinner. Nothing serious. Just a stomach bug. That's fine, I said. Tell her, I hope she feels better. Actually, though, he continued, I was wondering if I could swing by this afternoon. Got something I want to run by you. Business opportunity. Derek was always talking about business opportunities. He sold insurance, and in his mind, everything was a potential client or a potential investment. I'd learned to tune out most of it. Sure, I said. I'll be here. He showed up around 2, driving his black Dodge Charger, the one he'd bought last year that Sarah had quietly mentioned they really couldn't afford. He was all smiles and handshakes, but I noticed he kept glancing at my truck. "Still driving that old beast, huh?" he said. "Runs fine," I replied. My truck was a 2004 Silverado. Dark blue. Nothing fancy but maintained like I'd maintained every vehicle I'd ever owned. We sat in my kitchen, and he launched into his pitch. Some investment opportunity involving a buddy of his who was starting an auto detailing franchise, needed investors for the equipment. 20,000 gets you in as a partner, Derek said. I've already got 15 committed. Just need one more investor to get this thing rolling. I sipped my coffee. Derek, I'm retired. I'm not looking to invest in businesses, but you know cars. You know this industry. This is right in your wheelhouse. I appreciate you thinking of me, I said carefully. But I'm going to pass. His jaw tightened, just for a second. Then the smile was back. Fair enough. No pressure. He stood up, glanced out the window at my truck again. Hey, random question. You planning to use the truck this weekend? That's when I remembered the woman's warning. The hair on my neck stood up again. Why do you ask? Oh, just wondering if I could borrow it tomorrow. Got some furniture to move for Sarah's friend. My Charger's too small. Every instinct I'd honed over 40 years of reading people, of knowing when an engine sound was wrong, when something wasn't right, was screaming at me. Sorry. Can't do it, I said. I'm using it tomorrow. Really? Thought you just said you weren't going anywhere? Changed my mind. Got some errands to run. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he shrugged. No worries. I'll figure something else out. After he left, I stood at my kitchen window and watched his Charger disappear down the street. Then I looked at my truck, sitting exactly where it had been for 2 days now. Don't move your truck. I went to my junk drawer and pulled out a roll of thin, clear tape. I went outside and carefully placed 3 small pieces along the driver's door seam, where the door met the frame. If anyone opened that door, the tape would break. I did the same thing to the passenger door and the tailgate. Then I went inside and waited. Saturday night, I barely slept. I kept getting up, looking out the window, checking on the truck. The tape was still intact. No one had touched it. Sunday morning at 3 a.m., I was standing at my bedroom window when I saw the headlights. A dark SUV, maybe a Tahoe or a Yukon, pulled into my driveway with its lights on. It parked at an angle, blocking my truck's driver's side. 2 men got out. I couldn't see their faces in the darkness, but I could see their movements. Purposeful, deliberate. One of them walked around my truck with a flashlight, examining it. The other one went back to the SUV and pulled out what looked like a toolbox. My phone was in my hand. I could call 911, but something made me wait, made me watch. The one with the toolbox knelt by my truck's rear tire. I watched him work for maybe 3 minutes, though it felt like 30. Then both men got back in the SUV and drove away, headlights disappearing down my street. I waited 10 more minutes. Then I pulled on my jeans and a jacket and went outside. The tape on my doors was still intact. No one had opened my truck. But when I knelt by the rear driver's side tire, I found what they'd left. A small tear in the sidewall, barely visible unless you were looking for it. And when I shined my phone's flashlight underneath the truck bed, I saw it. A plastic bag, secured with zip ties to the undercarriage frame. I didn't touch it. Instead, I went back inside and did call 911. The sheriff's deputy arrived 20 minutes later. His name was Collins, young guy, probably early 30s, and I could see him trying to figure out if this was a real call or a waste of his time. Let me get this straight, he said. You saw 2 men tampering with your vehicle, but they didn't steal anything? I think you need to look under the truck, I said. And I think you need to call for someone with more authority than you've got. Something in my tone must have convinced him. He got down with his flashlight, and I watched his whole body go rigid. Don't touch anything, he said, standing up fast. I'm calling the detective on duty. It took 4 hours for everything to play out. Detective Martinez arrived with 2 other officers. They photographed everything. They carefully removed the bag from under my truck. 12 ounces of methamphetamine. Street value around $12,000. Mr. Mitchell, Martinez said, I'm going to need you to tell me everything. And I mean everything. So I did. I told him about helping the woman on Thursday, about her strange warning, about Derek's visit, his request to borrow my truck, about the tape I'd placed on the doors. The tape's still intact, Martinez confirmed, which means no one accessed the interior. And these drugs were placed after your son-in-law's visit? He's not, I stopped. Took a breath. He's my daughter's husband. And yes, the drugs were placed after his visit. Early Sunday morning. Martinez looked at the timestamp on my security camera. I'd installed it 3 months ago, mostly to keep an eye on package deliveries. But it had captured everything. Derek's visit Saturday afternoon. The SUV arriving Sunday morning. The 2 men working around my truck. We're going to need that footage, Martinez said. By Sunday afternoon, I knew most of the story. The rest came out over the following week. Derek was $70,000 in debt. Gambling, mostly, though some of it was the charger and other lifestyle expenses he couldn't afford. He'd gotten involved with people who'd offered him a way out. Plant the drugs, make an anonymous tip about a retired mechanic dealing meth, split the civil asset forfeiture money when the police seized my truck and my house. The tear in my tire was meant to ensure the police would search thoroughly, finding the drugs quickly. If I'd moved my truck even once between Thursday and Sunday, their plan would have failed. The security camera wouldn't have shown the continuous timeline. I wouldn't have had the tape evidence. They could have argued the drugs were mine, that I'd placed them there myself. But that woman, whoever she was, had known. Somehow, she'd known. My daughter Sarah showed up Monday evening. Her eyes were red, face swollen from crying. Dad, I had no idea. I swear to God, I had no idea. I believed her. Sarah had always been the honest one, even when honesty hurt. She was the one who'd told me when she was 16 that she'd dented my truck backing out of the driveway. The one who'd admitted she'd failed her first semester of college before I'd even seen the grades. I know, honey. He kept asking me about your schedule, about when you used the truck, where you kept the spare keys. I thought he was just making conversation, trying to bond with you. Her hands were shaking. I'm filing for divorce. The lawyer says it's going to be messy, but I don't care. I can't, I won't. Hey, I pulled her into a hug. You and the kids are going to be okay. We'll figure it out. Derek was arrested Tuesday morning, along with the 2 men from the SUV. Turned out they were his poker buddies, both of them with prior records. The charges included conspiracy to distribute, attempted frame-up, and a few other things that the prosecutor was still working out. Wednesday morning, I drove to Route 42 and spent 3 hours on that shoulder, hoping to see a silver Honda. She never showed up. I tried searching online for her, but I didn't even know her name. Young woman, dark hair, maybe 30 years old. Not much to go on. Thursday, I called the number she'd dialed for roadside assistance, the one I'd glimpsed on her phone screen. They had no record of a service call in that area on that date. Friday morning, I was in my workshop when it hit me. She'd been crying when I pulled up. On the phone with roadside assistance, she'd said. But the crying had stopped the moment I started working on her car, and by the time I'd finished, she'd been completely composed. No tears, no distress. Just that intense focus when she'd grabbed my arm. The belt had been snapped, yes, but cleanly snapped. Not the frayed break you'd usually see. Almost like it had been cut. She'd been waiting for me. Somehow, she'd known I'd come down that road. She'd known I'd stop. She'd known what was going to happen to me that weekend, and she'd positioned herself to warn me. I sat in my workshop, surrounded by tools I'd used for 40 years, and tried to make sense of it. Some angel, some psychic, some time traveler from a TV show, or maybe just someone who'd overheard Derek's plan. Someone who'd known him, or known his poker buddies, and who'd found out about the plot. Someone who couldn't go to the police directly, but could warn me in a way that would make me pay attention. I'll probably never know. What I do know is this: that 20-minute good deed, fixing a stranger's car on the side of the road, saved my life as I knew it. Saved my home. Saved my freedom. Maybe even saved my life itself. Because men desperate enough to plant drugs are desperate enough for worse. Martinez told me later that if they'd succeeded, I'd be in prison right now. 63-year-old man, no prior record, would probably get a light sentence, maybe 3 to 5 years. But in that time, they'd have seized my house through civil forfeiture, my truck, my savings. Everything I'd worked for over 4 decades would be gone. Sarah and the kids moved in with me while the divorce proceedings dragged on. My grandson Tyler, who's 8, started asking me about cars, how engines work, why oil is important, what all the tools in my workshop do. Last month, I started teaching him. We rebuilt a lawnmower engine together. His eyes lit up when it started. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. About how one act of kindness can ripple out in ways you can't predict. About how my stopping to help a stranger meant I was home Thursday evening to park my truck in exactly the right spot. About how that stranger's warning saved everything. Yesterday, I set up a scholarship at the local technical college. $5,000 a year for a student studying automotive technology. It's called the Good Samaritan Scholarship. Because here's what I learned. You never know when the person you help might be the person who saves you. You never know when 20 minutes of your time might be worth more than everything you own. And sometimes, the universe sends you a warning. When it does, you listen. You don't move that truck. You keep those promises, even when they don't make sense. Especially when they don't make sense. The other day, I was at the grocery store and an old woman was struggling to load her cart into her car. Her hands were shaking with arthritis, and she'd bought way too much for one person to handle. I helped her load everything. It took maybe 10 minutes. As I was closing her trunk, she looked at me and smiled. "You're a good man," she said. "Good things come to people like you." "I hope so," I said. She patted my hand. "They already have. You just might not know it yet." I watched her drive away, and I thought about a silver Honda on Route 42, about a young woman with dark hair who'd somehow known what I needed to hear. Tyler wants to rebuild a motorcycle next. Says when he's 16, he wants to ride it to school. Sarah says absolutely not. But she's smiling when she says it. Things are getting better. Slowly. The legal stuff with Derek is almost done. The house is louder now with the kids here. But it's a good kind of loud. I still park my truck in exactly the same spot every night. Backed against the garage, driver's side to the street. 2 feet from the fence line. Not because I think someone's coming to plant drugs again. Just because that's where it belongs. That's where I was supposed to leave it. And every time I walk past that truck, every single time, I think about those words. Don't move your truck this weekend. 3 simple sentences that changed everything. Sometimes I wonder if she's out there somewhere, helping someone else, fixing someone else's belt on a lonely highway, giving someone else the warning they need to hear. I hope she is. I hope she knows it worked. I hope she knows I listened.